A woman set out for what should have been an ordinary workday, following her usual routine before abruptly veering off course and returning home without explanation. By afternoon, she was seen walking along a highway with purpose, captured briefly on a grainy surveillance footage. Hours later, her family found her car in the driveway, the house locked, and all of her belongings left behind. Despite extensive searches across rugged terrain, no trace of her was ever found, and investigators remain divided on whether she walked away, was met with an accident, or crossed paths with someone who meant to harm her. Welcome to Without a Trace. I'm your host, Jalyn. Every file holds a mystery. Every story deserves to be heard. This is Melissa's story. Melissa Casias was born Melissa Mondragon on November 1st, 1971, to Jose and Joanne Mondragon in Taos, New Mexico. According to her Facebook, she graduated from Taos High School, then went on to study at the University of New Mexico. Melissa married Mark Casias, and together they share a daughter, Sierra, who was born on October 5th, 2006. Melissa is described by her friends and family as being steady and warm. On the weekends, she fills her time participating in archery competitions. She also shares an interest in hunting with her husband and daughter. On June 26, 2005, Melissa drove herself and her husband Mark to Los Alamos National Laboratory where they both work. Surveillance footage shows Melissa arriving at a guard shack at 6:13 a.m. that morning. The normal routine is that Melissa drops Mark off at his building before heading to hers. That morning, she told him she was headed to another location on site to finish a task she had, then she would bring the car back to him around 11 a.m. that morning. Typically, at the end of the day, Melissa picks Mark up and together they head home. Today, however, was different. Instead of going to her scheduled shift, Melissa's vehicle is seen leaving the Los Alamos National Laboratory property. Melissa then sends an email to her work saying something came up with her daughter, so she was going to be a little late to work. This was odd as there was nothing to suggest that something did come up with Sierra that morning. In fact, when Melissa sent the email, Sierra was still at home asleep. Sierra woke up around 7:30 to start getting ready for work and was surprised when, just a few minutes later, Melissa walked through the door. She asked her mom why she came home, and Melissa explained that she forgot her work badge. However, Mark would later tell police that he saw her hand it to the security at the guard shack that morning. Melissa offered to make Sierra breakfast, and again, Sierra asked her mom about work. Melissa responded that she's already late to work, so she has time to make her daughter breakfast. Plus, she might just stay home the entire day because she had errands to run. Eventually, Sierra heads off to work, thinking everything with her mother is fine. Around 11 a.m., Mark needs their shared car, but he can't get in touch with Melissa. It's unclear why Melissa was not answering her phone, as we know she was available since she was running errands. Around lunchtime, Melissa went to a Subway and bought a sandwich that she then dropped off with Sierra at her work just before 1 p.m. Sierra spoke briefly with her mom, and still everything seemed fine. Sierra gave her a check to deposit before saying goodbye. Melissa was seen on a nearby security camera walking by, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. At some point that day, Mark got a call from Melissa's supervisor asking where she was. This is when Mark first learned that she wasn't even at work. At this point, Mark is concerned that he might not have a ride home from work, but he isn't overly worried yet. He reached out to their daughter and learned that Sierra had seen her mom that morning and at lunch. So Mark, still worried about his transportation, asked Sierra to reach out to Melissa to see if she could get a response about whether or not he should catch a ride home from a coworker. Sierra texted her mom and saw that the message was read, so she assumed her mom was reaching out to Mark directly with an answer. However, that wasn't the case, and Mark reached out to Sierra a second time asking for help getting in touch with Melissa. By 2:34 p.m., text messages going to Melissa's phone are no longer being delivered via iMessage. Instead, they're delivered in a green text bubble, meaning Melissa's iPhone was either not connected to the internet or she had disabled iMessage. This concerned Sierra, so she left work, and when she got home, she saw her parents' shared vehicle in the driveway. The door to the house was locked, but inside, Sierra found all of Melissa's things, including her keys. According to a police report, there are no other keys that could have been used to lock the door. Along with her keys, Melissa's purse, work phone, and personal phone were sitting on the kitchen table. Strangely, her personal phone had been factory reset, and in some reports it is said that her work phone had also been factory reset. Inside Melissa's office, Sierra found her mother's purse, wallet, and cash, along with a check that Sierra had handed her earlier. After his shift, Mark got a ride home from a friend, and around 5 p.m., he began to worry. Inside the home, he too found all of Melissa's belongings left behind. Worried and unsure of where his wife was, he called the police to report his wife missing. Here is part of that call.
New Mexico State Police, this is Tomas.
Yeah, this is Mark Casias. You know what? We cannot locate my wife. We haven't heard from her all day, and this is not like her. She doesn't do this, much less leave without her phone and contact people. And I mean, she even left me walking. Well, not walking. I had to get a ride with one of my friends. I'm just out of it right now. I'm just trying to figure this out.
That's fine. I have an officer on the way, and they're going to go speak with you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
When the police arrived at the family's residence, Mark opened up about the family's financial struggles. In 2022, Sierra was a victim of a car accident that left her family with extreme medical bills. The family was banking on a car crash settlement to help with the bills that had piled up, but the settlement didn't land as expected. Melissa and Mark kept separate accounts, and though Melissa made about half of what Mark did, she was in charge of paying a lot of the household bills. One of her checking accounts was overdrawn by about $600, and the family owed back taxes. The financial issues had caused Melissa and Mark to lose their security clearance at work. This didn't really affect Mark's role as a superintendent, but Melissa is an administrative assistant in a secure building, and when she lost her security clearance, she had to be moved to a different building. On top of all of this, Melissa was having performance issues at work as well. Despite these stressors, Mark told police that his and Melissa's marriage was good and that they were getting the financial issues figured out. Melissa had just told a friend that she was paying the IRS back. Mark then gave the police permission to look around the house, and while they didn't see any signs of a struggle, there were two things that stood out. On the floor of Mark and Melissa's bedroom, there were a pair of boots that Mark said he hadn't used in forever. However, the officer found wet mud on the shoes, and near these boots, they found blood. Once word got out that Melissa was missing, a family friend called to report that he saw her on the day she disappeared. At around 2:15 p.m., Melissa was seen walking eastbound on New Mexico State Road 518 in Talpa. Surveillance footage from the area confirmed his sighting as a woman matching Melissa's description walking in the area. This spot is about a 47-minute walk from their home. Melissa was known for taking long walks, so at a glance, this doesn't seem out of the ordinary, and given the timeline, it is plausible that after dropping off lunch for her daughter, Melissa went home before setting off on this walk. The friend who saw Melissa wanted to stop and talk to her and see if she needed anything, but he couldn't just pull over on a highway, so he found a safe place to turn around and began to head back towards Melissa. However, moments later, when he arrived at the spot where Melissa should be, she was gone. Instead, the friend saw a newer model blue Dodge Ram pickup truck. The truck was gaining speed as if it had just been stopped. This reported sighting sparked rumors that Melissa had been followed by the truck. However, investigators tracked down the vehicle and interviewed the driver and were able to determine that Melissa did not get in that truck. Regardless, police still considered it a possibility that she got into a vehicle after the last camera sighting. Search teams moved fast in the first days. The shoulder and drainage ditch along the highway were swept, while a joint operation with the Sheriff's Office, New Mexico State Police, volunteers, and a helicopter searched 3 properties on the edge of Talpa. K-9 units and civilian drone pilots covered an estimated 283 acres of Carson National Forest. Melissa's family rallied the local hunting and archery community, of which Melissa was a part, and brought out more than 100 volunteers to walk the desert brush. Despite the extensive search efforts, no trace of Melissa was found. Investigators continue to work the case, pulling camera footage farther along the highway and cross-checking license plate reader data from the state police cars. They review her bank and employment records and examine digital traces that may point to Melissa's whereabouts. Authorities have kept every door open, exploring the possibility of Melissa being met by foul play, having been in an accident, or simply walking away on her own. From the facts gathered so far, authorities believe Melissa left on her own, but at this time, no one has been cleared as a potential suspect. For a case like this, a clear timeline is crucial. What we know is that at 6:15 a.m., Melissa dropped Mark off at work, saying she'd finish a task elsewhere on site and return their shared vehicle to Mark by 11 a.m. that morning. At 7:45, she returned home and told Sierra she forgot her work badge and that she was going to call out from work. From 12:50 to 12:57 p.m., Melissa dropped lunch off to Sierra, and cameras captured her walking nearby. From 2:15 to 2:18 p.m., Melissa was seen on surveillance cameras walking eastbound on New Mexico State Road 518. At 3:30, Sierra returned home to find her mom missing, and at 5 p.m., Mark reported his wife missing. Several theories remain. Many agree with the police's theory that Melissa voluntarily left her life behind. The last known image of her shows her walking with a purpose. While the footage is grainy, it is believed that she was wearing a backpack, which suggests planning. Plus, it can be assumed that Melissa was under a great deal of stress with the financial situation she was in. This adds context to a possible voluntarily walk-away theory. However, Melissa's family say she would never leave her daughter. Plus, she had plans for the weekend she went missing to take a lake trip with her family and was planning to help her mother recover from a knee surgery the following week. In addition to this, Melissa left behind her cash, and there has been no activity on her bank account since she disappeared. A likely theory is that Melissa was in an accident. New Mexico has rugged terrain, and the area Melissa was last seen in has a lot of thick brush, steep slopes, and streams. If she cut through a forest road or onto a private land, a slight misstep could have led to a bad fall. While the area was heavily searched on foot with dogs and by drone, the dense brush would make it difficult to find Melissa if she had fallen. Regardless of what happened to her, Melissa leaves behind a family waiting for answers. Anyone with information is urged to contact police at 505-425-6771. At the time of her disappearance, Melissa was 53 years old, standing at 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighing about 115 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was wearing jeans, white and pink tennis shoes, and a turquoise shirt. She has a dragon tattoo on her right ankle, a dreamcatcher tattoo on her left shoulder, and a bow and arrow tattoo on her right arm. Thank you for listening to Without a Trace. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Melissa's disappearance. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and follow Without a Trace on social media, and join me next week as I dive into another case.